Hi, my name is Deborah Hendrix, and I am with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program here at the University of Florida. I would like to welcome you to a video editing station that we in the Oral History Program are sponsoring, even though you're here in the library. So the purpose of this video is to kind of point out two important things that you need to know before you start your video editing experience in these wonderful editing edit bays, I guess. And that is that you're going to have some slight limitations that are easily overcome. I just want to make you aware of these before you start out. But let me just introduce you to this Mac right here and tell you what's under the hood. Now these, like I say, have been built for speed. These are specifically made for video editing. So what we have is 32 gigs of RAM. We have i7 processors. We have the fastest graphics card that we could buy at the time. And last but not least, we have a 1 terabyte SSD drive to power it all, power your applications. So all of that means speed, and speed is what you need for video editing. Now, as we know, in lab computers, you must use your user account to log on. And that's fine, and that works well. But just keep this in mind, and you already know this. When you do that, you cannot store anything on the computer. So that means if you did anything on the computer, please make sure you take it off before you log off, because poof, it'll be gone. So that brings me to item number 2 here, and that is talking about your storage, how you're going to bring your storage in. So what I have here in my hand is kind of typical. Well, in this case, it's a 1 terabyte drive with a USB 3 connector. USB 3 is very fast, and we have several USB 3 ports on the back of this Mac. We also have Thunderbolt, which is the fastest. So if you can get a Thunderbolt drive, that's the best. And at this point, they're really not that common. But I think for most of your purposes, this will be just fine. So here is our drive. And let me just point out 2 important things about this. Of course, we mentioned the USB 3, which is the fastest port. But not as fast as Thunderbolt. So if you have access to a Thunderbolt drive, that would be the best. But these come in 2 speeds. And yes, the price is going to reflect that. But try, if you can, to get one of these drives, these external drives, that spins at 7,200 RPMs. That's much, much better for video editing just because it's faster. And we can't emphasize speed enough because we push around such enormous files that you can get bogged down if you're underpowered. So the cheaper version of this spins at about 5,500 RPM, and that's okay for storage, but it's not good for the back and forth process between your application, which will be on the computer hard drive, and this external drive, which will contain your project that you carry around. So we concentrate on Final Cut Pro, and that is one of the 2 video editing programs on this machine, Final Cut Pro and iMovie. iMovie, of course, is basically like a light version of Final Cut Pro, but they both use the same idea of having a library that contains every bit of your media, well, everything, your project and everything. So that makes it portable, and that means that you can carry it around on one of these drives. That's a huge improvement over previous versions where you had disparate parts and all of that. I'm going to show you something that it's important to know, and that is the formatting. So let me just break away here, and we're going to show you how to format your drive. And there's 2 different formats that I recommend, and they both have advantages and disadvantages. So let me just bring up our drive here, which is in this case it's just a little flash drive. So here we go. We're going to go into Go, Utilities, and of course disk utility right here. I'm going to double click that, and it brings up this window. Here we go. And right now, here we go. This is our little flash drive, our little drive. Well, it wouldn't look any different if it was an external drive. It is an external drive, but anyway, here we go. So we're going to go here, and we're going to reformat this. And I'm going to show you how this works. So the first thing you want to do is partition it. If you do this, make sure that whatever you have on this drive, you have backed up somewhere, because this is going to completely erase the drive. So if you have a drive that you have formatted one way, you can't go back and format it another. Now, yes, you can go and format half of it, and like right here, you could make different partitions, but we're not going to worry about that right now. We're just going to say, one, this format is the old format, and I wouldn't recommend using that at all. That has a 4 gigabyte limitation, so we know we have files in video that are much, much larger than 4 gigabytes, right? So the other choices that we have are exFAT, which let's come back to that in a minute, or this Mac OS Extended Journaled. Now, this is Mac only, so if you have a drive that you want to use for a PC as well, you're going to have some problems because it's not going to recognize it. The only way to get it to recognize is to reformat it. So if you get a new drive, format it one of these two ways, and this is going to be up to you. So let me explain the difference. The exFAT you can use on a Mac or PC, and there's no file size limitation. Now that said, if you have something below Windows in a PC or something below Snow Leopard on on your Mac, the exFAT's not going to work. But I mean, those have been gone for a good while. Those operating systems have been gone. So that's probably not going to factor in. But here's what will factor in. Mac, as I said, is Mac only. This is Mac or PC. So clearly this would be the one to choose, right? Well, it would be in most cases, except for video editing. So let me explain why that is. If you want to do voiceovers, and you have your drive, your external drive, formatted in exFAT, the VoiceOver tool will not work in either Final Cut Pro or iMovie. If you plan to do a lot of voiceovers using the Mac computer itself, this is not the way to go. You'll have to use this one, the Mac OS Extended Journal, but in that case, this is only going to be for Mac. So if that's all you have and you never plan to let the thing be attached to a PC, or you're good. So that is the difference. Let's just go ahead and complete this, and I'm going to go just exFAT. Now we can label this any way we want or name it at this point. We'll just call it, I don't know, Bert again. There we go. So here we go. We apply, and are you sure? Because it's definitely going to be erased. And it gives you an opportunity not to do that. So, but we are going to do it at this point, and it just is just that quick. And look, it changed our little icon that we had, our pretty little icon, to something else. So at that point, we're done, and we can exit out and blah blah blah. We're done. Now let me show you a little trick here that's kind of cool while we're on this subject that you may not know. I happen to have a little leaf over here that I use just for this purpose. I have another one too. I have 2 leaves. But did you know you could do this? So what we're going to do is Command-I, and that brings up, of course, our info. But did you know that you could do this? I'm going to change. Watch this right here, and I'm going to change this icon just by dragging this over and putting it right there. How about that? So you can make your own customized icon. And that is just a bonus for this tutorial. So now you see how to format the drive. So let's look at another drive here that people, I have found students very, very for some reason, like to try and do this. But these are, of course, flash drives, and we know that everybody has one of these. Are wonderful for storing things. They are not wonderful for video editing. They may have the storage, but they don't have the speed yet. I mean, that's coming, and some are already out, and they're quite pricey. But for now, I would completely avoid using one of these flash drives for editing, because it might start out okay in the initial phases, but as you start compositing and building your project, well, it's going to just slow down to nothing, become an extremely frustrating experience. And we all know as video editors that a video can be very frustrating. And here's another type. It's just smaller, but you get the idea. Don't use the flash drives. So speaking of drives, I guess the apex of the drives right now would be to get an SSD drive, which you can get. They're quite pricey. I think a 1 terabyte drive is going to take a pretty big bite out of $500. But that'd be the fastest. So if you could combine that, an SSD drive, plus the Thunderbolt connector, why, that would be the best case scenario. But that's going to set you back a few bucks. These regular external drives, just make sure you get at least a USB 3, which is pretty much all the new ones, and make sure that they spin at 7,200 RPM. And I think your video editing experience will be just fine. So let me just close out by saying check out the tutorials located on our SPOHP YouTube site, and it goes into a lot more detail about video editing. In those tutorials, I have concentrated on iMovie, which is all pretty much applicable to Final Cut Pro. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call or come by the offices of the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, and I will be more than happy to talk with you or talk your ear off about video editing, which it happens to be my favoriteest thing of all. So happy editing, and away you go.